Thank you all for being here. There's an ancient saying in the Catholic Church, lex orandi, lex credendi. And it means that there's a connection between how we pray and what we believe. I was at a conference recently, and one of the presenters, Brother Rufino Zaragoza, reflected on that connection in light of our church's liturgy in the past 30 or 40 years. Since the middle of the 1980s, there's been a deepening movement within the Catholic Church in the United States to pray in ever more culturally inclusive ways. It began as parishes noticed more and more Spanish-speaking people at church and responded in a welcoming way, trying to include parts and pieces of the Mass in Spanish. No one really knew how to do this very well, and much experimentation happened until liturgy experts published a guideline for bilingual masses in the year 1998. Our prayer was all about welcoming and hospitality. And then 2 years later, in the year 2000, the U.S. Catholic bishops published a pastoral letter entitled, Welcoming the Stranger. They called the Catholic Church in the United States to practice the virtue of hospitality. Hospitality is an amazing virtue. It goes way beyond simply tolerating a person like a distant relative that we host out of a feeling of obligation, hoping that they leave soon so that we can get back to normal. It has to do with receiving someone in an open way and sharing with them generously from what we have. Opening to someone, going to meet them, coming to know them, learning about them, allowing them to simply be who they are. And when we do that, we receive a gift in return. A new way of seeing the world that enlarges us and enlarges our spirits. Think Abraham in the desert under the terebinth of Mamre. Seeing three passing strangers, he jumps up, runs to them and begs them to come and stay with him. He gives them a place of refuge and protection in the desert. He feeds them the best of what he has and shares with them the scarcest of his resources, his water. And in return, they give to him and his wife a great gift, the promise of a child within a year. As we in the Catholic Church struggle to practice hospitality, an amazing thing happened. We found that those who had come were no longer visitors, but were now our neighbors. They lived next door to us. Their children were friends with our children. They shopped in the same grocery store as us. And by little, they became our friends. This new reality was mirrored in our Catholic parishes as we moved from the desire to simply make folks welcome to a mutual desire to really know them. In the early part of this new century, another liturgy guide was published to help us pray, reflecting this new reality. It was simply entitled Multicultural Celebrations. And it was an acknowledgement that we had moved to a deeper relationship from language to culture. And shortly after that, in 2003, the U.S. Catholic bishops wrote a joint letter with the bishops of Mexico entitled Strangers No Longer. We were moving from hospitality to communion. Now today, another reality is emerging. Those children who played with our children grew up. Those neighbors who lived next door put down roots. Those people who were once them are now becoming us. And this, again, has affected how we pray. And a new guy has recently been published entitled Liturgy in Culturally Diverse Communities. And it's less about the actual celebrations and much more about bringing diverse peoples together to more deeply know and understand one another. Now, there is not, as far as I know, a forthcoming letter from the bishops regarding immigration, at least not one that I'm aware of. But if there were, I think it would be entitled Becoming the Stranger, because it completes the movement from hospitality to communion to solidarity. From welcoming the stranger to strangers no longer to becoming the stranger. This movement from hospitality to communion to solidarity, it's the movement that we, the people of these United States, have been living, often with much tension and upheaval, with much pain and many tears. And today, we come to a moment when the time is ripe, or more biblically stated, the fullness of time, when the opportunity comes to enact laws that truly reflect the reality of how we have grown into solidarity with brothers and sisters who have come here from other places. They have come for opportunity, and they will, as they have for the entire history of our nation, make our country better.